So, what's your type? Ever been attracted to someone you wished you weren't attracted to? Do you have a sibling whose significant other is the exact opposite of what appeals to you? In the next 4 minutes, you will learn why you're attracted to some people but not others, what's going on in your body when all of this is happening, and why even identical twins can be attracted to completely different kinds of people. Remember the first time you had a crush on someone? The sweaty palms and the fluttering stomach, the inability to speak properly when they walked by? When it comes to who you actually feel lust or attraction for, your subconscious brain evaluates the people you meet based on all sorts of factors: their looks, their personality, their socioeconomic status. Maybe they remind you in some weird way of someone who used to make you feel safe when you were small. Alternatively, maybe they remind you of someone whose attention you used to crave growing up. Who we find attractive varies widely from person to person. Though things like symmetrical faces and a clear complexion do matter, an experiment involving people rating their attraction to photos of different faces showed that people generally agree only about 50% of the time on who they find attractive. That is actually a pretty huge difference. If we were biologically wired to focus only on certain signals, you'd think we'd agree much more than not. The study went on to test the same variables in sets of twins to see if there was a nature versus nurture angle at work here. It turns out that twins also don't see eye to eye on attractiveness. The study concluded that attraction is extremely personal, based much more on the minor experiences likely to be different in our lives than on genetics or major communal experiences. But that's only if we're looking at photos. When you meet in person, a whole range of more complicated elements get introduced. As you get to know someone, you start forming a bond with them. In certain cases, this bond turns into attraction. At that point, your brain starts flooding your bloodstream with dopamine, the feel-good hormone that famously is related to addiction, and norepinephrine, which affects excitement levels. But why exactly do we fall in love? Take scent, for example. Women, who are more perceptive of smells than men are, can smell sweat from about 3 feet away. Aside from its coolant value, sweat contains all sorts of trace chemicals that give the people around you subconscious cues about you. One study investigated the link between a certain genetic code group called the major histocompatibility complex and smell. MHC has a known effect on our immune systems, and it turns out that we can actually smell that. Women in the study were given the worn undershirts of male contributors and asked to assign a rating for different shirts based on how good they smelled. Women generally preferred the smelly underclothes of men who had different MHC genes from them, which scientists believe is an evolutionary adaptation to help have the healthiest possible offspring. A different study investigating MHC found that if a woman is taking birth control, which releases hormones that mimic pregnancy, they actually start to prefer the scent of men who have similar MHC gene sequences. This altered preference may reflect how, during pregnancy, it is more important for a woman to have close, caring bonds than for her to be searching for the most suitable genetic match. Research has also shown that men can note several different subconscious clues in order to tell if a woman is fertile, including her scent, her voice, and even her face. Women, too, often prefer men with masculine features, perhaps as stand-in markers for virility. Lust, which is primarily sexual in nature, and attraction, which is basically what you feel when you're crushing on someone, don't need to overlap. And as the bond between two people develops from young love into something more long-term, you wind up with attachment as well. The primary chemical regulators of attachment are oxytocin, the cuddle hormone, and vasopressin. Oxytocin levels spike during events that are important bonding activities, like cuddles, orgasms, and breastfeeding. All these chemicals are floating around in your blood, making you feel all sorts of crazy when you're in love. It may seem sort of obvious in hindsight, but once you've caught the love bug, you are pretty much no longer totally in control of your body. And though it's hard to believe, the desire to follow your heart is, scientifically speaking, not much more than an evolutionary instinct to follow your biology.